Welcome to this Autism Ontario webinar, Autism Spectrum, Sexuality, and the Law. My name is Matthew Lay, and as always, I will be your host. Today, we are joined by my favorite sexologist and author, Dr. Elizabeth Hénault. Not her first time with us, but these conversations are always very informative and very helpful for us. Now, before we get started, there are a few things that I need to cover. I'm going to start today with the technology items. First and foremost, I'm here. Part of my job, my big job here, is to get your questions answered. And so, in doing that, submit your questions at any time. We've had a bunch that have already been submitted, and we will aspire to get you answers throughout the presentation. So basically, we are going to pause from time to time to get your questions answered. Now, you will hear us refer to a few different items as it relates to resources. They'll be talked about in the deck. There will be links, but we want to draw your attention to the resource section. In the resource section, there are a bunch of links and a bunch of items there that will help inform our conversation and allow you to dive deeper into the topics. If you have any issues, you can click on the help icon, or you can also send a note in the Q&A, and we will aspire to help you there. Okay, we're going to be dealing with some very interesting topics today. The ideas of sexuality can be sometimes challenging for some to have an open discussion about. It's important to note that opinions reflected in this webinar are those of the presenters and do not necessarily reflect Autism Ontario's views. Please note that Autism Ontario does not endorse any specific therapy, product treatment, strategy, opinion, service, or individual. We do, however, endorse your right to information. We strongly believe that it's important to do your own research and make your own informed decisions, and that's why we hold these events in particular. We're going to use language throughout the presentation as it reflects to autism, and autism means something different to everyone. Medical professionals, researchers, and providers may use one term, and an individual or their family may use another. The different terms you'll hear used today describe autism either in the first-person perspective, person with autism, or the identity first label, autistic person. Person first language reflects the idea that autism can be separated from the person and doesn't define them, similar to phrases such as living with autism. While identity first language reflects the belief that being autistic is an important part of a person's identity and cannot be separated. To respect both these preferences, we will be using the terms interchangeably throughout the webinar, and we'll respect any label that you personally choose as well. More information about Autism Ontario's language statement can be found in the resource section. Now, a reminder, during this presentation, we cannot answer specific questions pertaining to your individual child or individual that you may know. You can pose them, and we will aspire to provide answers to where you can get the answers to those questions, but we can't talk about any specifics. We will be discussing general strategies. So you may ask a question and I may generalize it, or activities, and we will talk about where you can find additional information, as I mentioned, or professionals that may be helpful for you. Okay, that is a lot. And with that, the biggest part of my job is done. And now I'm going to bring in the actual star of the show. Isabelle, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you everyone from Autism Ontario. I'm very happy to be with you today and to explore this very important topic of autism, sexuality, and the law. As Matt was saying, it's a sensitive one. We'll be using some language. I'll go straight to the point because we just have an hour and a half to, explore such a wide, topic. But of course, I'm very respectful of each person's, experience and their view about sexuality, and the goal is really to inform you, support, teenagers and adults and make sure that they won't fall in the trap of the criminal justice system, because that can change their entire life. And as parents too, it can change your life with so many consequences. So I'm happy that you were all open to explore this topic and this theme. So if we start just briefly, for maybe those of you who don't know me, I'm Isabelle Hénault. I'm from Montreal. I'm a sexologist and psychologist too. And I work at the Autism and Asperger's Clinic, where we have a group of 12 colleagues. We're a multidisciplinary team. That's important, especially for today's topic, in fact, because we all work in bits and bits where I provide a lot of information. I do counseling for teenagers and adults and also families. But I also work closely with my colleagues who are also sexologists, psychologists, psychoeducators, special educators, and clinicians, because we all need to be there in the different environment, school, community, at our clinic, of course, but we try to work in different contexts. So we make sure that our clients, they are safe and they learn appropriate knowledge regarding sexuality and the law. So if you're curious, you can go on our website and have a look at the team in Montreal. So
Excellent.
yes, go ahead, Matt. Yeah.
I was just going to say, we're going to be talking about some big topics here: sexual profile and development, inappropriate behaviors, material and adaptive strategies. But before we get into those, my initial question is simply, why is this important? You talked already about staying away from the law, which is very important. But why is this such an important topic for us right now?
Yeah, because internet is available everywhere, accessible in schools and libraries, at friends' houses, at your own houses. And I would say in the last maybe 10 years, talking with groups of teenagers, adults, and their parents, of course, we realize that many of them, they navigate online, but they don't know the rules. And in fact, there's no set of specific rules when you go online, but we know that internet contains a lot of traps, a lot of pornography, illegal images as well. And many of the students I work with, they go online and they are curious. They want to learn about sexuality. But when you go online and you type sex, or you want to learn or see something and you type it, you won't see educational material. You'll see porn.
Mhm.
And since internet is available everywhere, you can also go online and start to chat with people, or people chat with you and they start to share. And do you know how to navigate safely? And that's my concern, because many of them, unfortunately, came to my clinic and said, Isabelle, I'm in big trouble. Or, I'm not very well at the moment because I'm kind of chatting with someone, unsure about their intention. Is it good intention, not good intention? And parents, since many of them, they go online for other reasons, but they won't see what's happening in the real world. It's sex, online sexuality is everywhere. And I do a lot of parents' night in schools and organizations. And I don't want to shock them, but I need to tell them the truth because they're not aware of what's happening online. So if they want to be supportive, they also need to know how to, make home safe. And I teach students, and this is what I'll be explaining today in details. We have lots of material topics, and they are curious to learn. So I think it's up to us, professionals and families, to work hand in hand to prevent falling in the trap of internet, or being in illegal situation, or being abused by someone who may have negative intention.
Okay. That's a lot. And the good thing about it is you talked in there about some of the strategies you will be discussing, which people have already asked questions about. So chat rooms and gaming and that sort of thing. So without further ado, we're going to get into the content. So I will pass it over to you. And Isabelle, I will come back at a break to answer questions. For all of you out there, keep submitting your questions. We're logging them, and we're going to ensure that we get you answers at the appropriate time.
Good. So, as an introduction about sexuality, I also use the term Asperger's. I know in some province in Canada and US, they're not using Asperger's anymore, but I use it, just to respect many of our clients who prefer the term Asperger. Others will prefer autism. So, I'm very open with both. I am just here to share as much as possible. I wish to just bring your attention on some information that describes the sexual profile of those with autism or Asperger's syndrome. And you know all this information, but I'm just going to bring important details about sexuality. The first thing we know is that's a main factor. In fact, most of our students and adults are free of social skills and convention. They don't necessarily understand unwritten rules, and it can be very confusing to socialize and overwhelming for many of them. So that's why in the program I'll be presenting today, we teach them social skills. So they start to feel more confident when they meet other people, they start to have more success. And my goal is really to prevent becoming isolated as young adults. I'll just go backtrack a little bit. When I started my work, that's now 19 years ago, I was very interested in sex education for young teenagers, to give them knowledge so they are aware of what's okay, what's not okay, how to navigate safely, when they make friends. And I discovered that those who have been bullied and teased, and that's unfortunately very common for many of them. They are so afraid of making mistakes, being rejected, that when they reach young adulthood, they start to develop a lot of social anxiety and what we call performance anxiety. So they don't want to initiate any contact due to past negative experience, and they start to lose confidence about themselves. So they have this vision of them that is usually quite negative. So that's a worry for me as a therapist, because the more I work with someone who's isolated, the more there's risk of depression symptoms emerging, and also the only mean of socializing become internet. And if the person doesn't know the rules, if the person is, maybe naive, go online without understanding how it works, there is an increased risk of falling in the trap of looking at inappropriate material, downloading, or maybe having chats with people who may have negative intention. And that's unfortunately the case of many of my clients, where they fell in the trap. So that's why we're using a lot of social skills program, especially in groups. We run groups all year long. We are just finishing one, in fact, next week, and I will talk about this group. It's a young adult group. We're teaching them advanced skills about healthy sexuality and relationships. And we talk about, of course, the law a lot. And they improve their knowledge, their experience, and it's also a way for them to finally start to socialize in a safe environment, make friends while they learn important topics. Just as a quick note, one of our participants from last semester, he also participated this time because he said, Isabelle, there was so much material, so much to learn, and I want to make new friends. And he says, since I've learned the program already, I can maybe comment and bring my perspective and be part of the interaction of the group. So we said, of course, you can join again. So he's part of the second cohort, and it's very interesting. We also explore communication abilities, verbal, nonverbal, how to make sure that you understand what's appropriate when you are in a conversation with someone. Very briefly, maybe there are words that are not okay to use when you start to date with someone. When there are steps in relationship, what are the topics you can discuss with your boyfriend, girlfriend, to make sure that you don't make them uncomfortable. Or if someone discuss with you online, and after 2 3 chat experience, already the person is talking about sexuality, is this like a red alarm? Is this okay? Is this normal? So this is it, this is what we'll be exploring together. And also how to read nonverbal. When you meet people, when you relate, when you socialize, are you able to understand their emotions from the face, the gesture, the posture? And we know that about 80% of communication goes through nonverbal. And this is very tricky for many students and adults that we work with. So we will teach them with scenarios, videos, and in my reference section today, I shared the material we're using. So I'll be more explicit about this later on, but I'll show you all the material. And this topic of theory of mind is, from my perspective, the most important aspect of all. When we talk about theory of mind here, is the ability to understand that people think and feel in a different way, and people have different intention than my intention. So I call it the thought bubble. So it's like in cartoons where we have a thought bubble. So those with autism, Asperger's syndrome, may have issues or delays in acquiring theory of mind abilities. So it means that they may misread other people's intention and emotion, or they tend to project on other people their own way of thinking. And that leads to at least 50% of cases of inappropriate sexual behaviors, or being very vulnerable online. Because let's say I go online, my intention is to make friends, but the person I'm chatting with has other types of intention. Will I be able to read the intention? How can I manage? How can I navigate? And this is extremely important because it leads to notion of consent. So if I haven't acquired theory of mind, I am not able to give consent and check consent because I'm only thinking about myself. So this will be a huge part of the work we do to prevent, but also when I work with teenagers or adults who've been arrested for illegal behaviors, criminal behaviors. This is the major point where I explain to court, or to my colleagues, that most of the time, and there's ways to check if the person understands and knows about theory of mind. So I do an assessment with my clients. Most of the time, no, they're not really good, they misread situation, and that can be a factor to explain, not to excuse the behavior, but to explain that this person didn't have a predator mind. Negative intention is due to lack of theory of mind and notion of consent. So I'll go back on this concept throughout my presentation because it's the center most important aspect factor of autism, the sexuality and the law. We will also explore emotions, emotion management, how to detect emotions, how to read emotion, and we take into account the sensory profile. So all the sensory issues that comes along with autism, there can be hypersensitivity, hyposensitivity, that also act as a factor on how students and adults will develop their sexuality needs and means of expression. So most of the information I'm presenting today comes out from this book that was co-written with Dr. Tony Attwood. You may heard about Tony Attwood. He's a world expert on autism and Asperger's syndrome, psychologist in Australia. And Nick Dubin. Nick is an adult who was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. And I need to tell you a story because this is how it all came true and came clear to me. Before we published the book, um, I've already worked with court as an expert witness in sexology and psychology. I was, working with families who were devastated and teenagers and young adults accused of criminal behaviors, facing probably prison. And I was working with them, and of course, discussing a lot with my colleague Tony Attwood on strategies to prevent, but also strategies to support them once they are at court. And then I received one day, I will remember all my life, I received a phone call from Larry Dubin. That's Nick Dubin's father. Larry is a lawyer in criminal justice in the United States. So I received a call and I was very curious. I thought maybe him or Nick wants me to present about my work on sexuality. And in fact, Larry said, Isabelle, do you know my son Nick? And I said, yeah, definitely. I read all his, because he wrote books. Nick wrote books. He gave presentation and he was very well known in the field at that time and very well respected and inspiring. And I said, yeah, of course. He doesn't know me, but I know him. He said, in fact, Nick's in jail. I said, what? He said, Nick is in jail. because he downloaded illegal material. And I was like, oh no, don't tell me. And we know the law in US are even more strict than Canadian laws. And I said, oh, what happened? And he said, I'm contacting you because Nick read your book on sexuality and Asperger's syndrome, and he would like to know if you would like to contribute to a book, not to excuse what Nick did, but to explain. And Nick, I think, was so courageous. And he said, in my situation, there's just negative issues that will come along. So maybe I should use my time and energy to support and help other fellows not to fall in the same trap. And of course, I said, definitely, I'm joining the book, although it's a very sensitive one. And again, we're not defending what Nick did, but trying to understand, explain, and support. So after this call, I called Tony Atwood, who's my good colleague and friend, and I said, Tony, I know you're also involved in many similar cases in Australia. So we need to join our effort from Australia, US, and Canada to write a book. And Tony accepted and he said, of course. So here's the story of the book. It's been almost 10 years since we published the book, and we're still promoting the book because inside there's the story of Nick, but also material, ideas, and that's my part mainly. Exploring what we call sex education program, but also diversion program for those who've been already arrested, what we can explore with court, with judges. And the nice thing about the book is after well, Nick was in a terrible story, but finally he got out of prison, but he's also unfortunately on the registry. So he cannot travel through many states in the United States. He can come in, come back, but each state has different laws and regulation. But I was able to travel a few times to US. I'm not far, in fact, and we presented together. And one occasion was in a university, and we were in a law school. It was just amazing because they were willing to learn about the autism profile and to better serve them when they face criminal justice system or at court, and to understand the factors that may lead someone to act in inappropriate ways online or legal material. So there are positive outcome. I'm still doing training all over Canada and in Europe now because we have the book that's been translated for Scandinavian countries and in French for France, Switzerland, etc. So that's one of my mission because I really want to support my clients to make sure that they don't fall in the trap. So we may go on next slide. Nick, was confused about his own orientation because for years people call him gay. And he started to wonder, am I gay? Since there was a delay in his sexual experience, like all my clients, he was curious. So he went online. So when you're curious, go online, as I said in the introduction, and you just want to check about different sexual positions, curious to see body parts, and this is normal, but you'll fall on porn, and this is not normal. When I was young myself, we didn't have access to internet. I'm in my 50s now. So at school with my friends, we looked at the dictionary. We had some books about sexuality, but very minimal. But when you looked at books, or guys, boys in our class, as you remember maybe yourself, were looking at magazines. The thing is, it was not illegal. There was nothing illegal in magazines or books. So in a way, we were protected. So the problem now is if you're more isolated, you've been intimidated, like Nick was bullied for so many years. He had sexual desires, but he had no access to program or material. The only one was online. So he went online. But after a few clicks, you fall in the gray zone of semi-legal porn. And this is what I want to teach you today because all my clients, they've been online. All of them, even girls. Parents say, yeah, but she's a girl. Yes, of course, she's curious. But if they go online and they fall on porn material, they get curious. They may start to look at material that they didn't want to look initially, or fall on also legal sites of As you know, the Japanese manga are very popular with our clients. But when you look at manga on the manga website, there's hentai. And hentai in Canada are illegal because it represents child sexual pornography. And my clients say, yes, but Isabelle, it's only drawing. But here you can be charged and you can go to prison and you can be on the registry because it means that you looked at illegal material. So my clients, I started to work with them and ask them questions about their knowledge. And to be honest with you, when I started to, I just wrote a 10 questionnaire quiz and they were all confused. Most of them had maybe one or two good answers. And I said to my colleague, his name is Dominic. We work together in running our groups here in Montreal. He said we really, really need to teach them because they are confused and they don't know. And we also need to develop material. So if they go online, we now have an entire list of educational material that they can look at. We can discuss it together and there's no risk. So we say, here's the list on each topic you're curious about. This is where you can go online to find good information, and this is what you need to avoid. And these are the consequences, because that's another thing. Many of them, they didn't know about consequences. And especially when we reach puberty, it is so important because this is the time of our life where we develop friendship, social skills, groups. We start to engage with people. We need to teach our students communication abilities. So when they share, they know what's okay, what's not okay. And I always say I want to prevent inappropriate behaviors from my students and adults, but I want to prevent abuse because we know there is high rates of inappropriate and abusive behaviors towards students and adults as well. And we want to teach them about relationship, the intensity of relationship, what's appropriate, how can you find a balance? Because I also work with some of them who finally they make friends or they meet someone online. They are so thrilled and so happy that the other person becomes their special interest. But maybe it's too much. Maybe it's going to be suffocating for the other person and they may lose a relationship. So we teach them steps, healthy steps, finding a balance, what's inappropriate. I don't want my clients to be inappropriate online and to maybe chat about sexuality, or if someone wants to talk about sex with them or even share inappropriate material, they need to know what's okay, what's not okay. And we will teach them love, friendship, intimacy. So this is a program we're running at the moment in Montreal. I'd be very happy eventually to translate the material with my colleague. But in the book we published, you'll find in today's session a lot of this material. It's very practical, hands-on, and all our clients are super happy to learn. And although they say, oh, we will really talk about pornography, I say yes, because you'll be exposed. And I want you to be safe. And I want you to make wise choices. So if we overprotect our clients, we won't talk about this issue, but overprotection increase the risk of being abused or having inappropriate behaviors. So my main is protection through education and specific programs. So that's why I'm very enthusiastic. Although this, I know it's a sensitive topic, but we have many resources now. So the presenting issue is lack of sexual education for a majority of students, overprotection. So saying, oh, we won't address this because it's making me uncomfortable, or people say, oh, don't you think you go too far, Isabelle, talking about porn and online chatting and dating? I say, no, that's their reality. So for me, it's very important because, to be honest with you, the moment we work with them and parents go in the waiting room at the clinic, we've closed the clinic since, but we had a big center before COVID, and we were running groups there or having one-on-one session. All my clients said, Isabelle, find me a boyfriend or find me a girlfriend. This is what they ask me. And I say, we're not a dating agency, but I will teach you all the adaptive skills. So you're aware, you become a good friend, you are able to build healthy relationship, and if ever you're at risk, we'll make sure that you learn limits and boundaries because they are very curious. And since then, knowledge about the law, because we don't want to wait until there are legal consequences, because sometimes it's gone, it's too far, we can't do anything. So we will prevent, and definitely a lot of my work now is talking about internet and pornography. We also know that there are psychosexual factors that can eventually maybe create inappropriate behaviors or trigger inappropriate behavior. One of them is what we call a structural factor. It's the lack of education or procedures. What's okay, what's not okay. When you go online, how can you be safe? And it's interesting, I've just finished a series of presentation in different schools in Montreal. It's schools where it's either specialized schools or where they have classroom for autistic students. And at the end of my presentation, the principal of the school said, in fact, Isabelle, you are here to talk about autism, but this knowledge and this information should be taught to all students. And I said, I think you're right, because I think everyone should be more aware. And when we think about notion of consent, it's important for all of us, not just for autistic students. But I feel that they lack of information even more than neurotypical students, because they tend to be more isolated and they may not have what I call a chance to check with their group of friends. I have a teenage boy, and I love teenagers. I've been studying teenage years for years, and sex education. And what I noticed when he was reaching 14, 15 is, and it's so important, since he had a group of friends, he was able to check what's okay, what's not okay, and observe his friends. And you finally make up your mind about relationship, about sexuality. And he had access to sex education at school. And mom asked me, he said, oh, the worst thing is to have a mom who's a sexologist, because I had lots, and I was testing my material with him for years. In fact, that's a good thing, because he was also checking with his friends what's good, what's not good, and make it maybe more practical or visual. But he said, in fact, mom, you were right. Now he's soon to be an adult. He said, you were so right, because we're bombarded when we go online. And he said, good thing that you taught me how to stay safe. But he said, I understand that, working with your students in special school is even more important, because sometimes on the top of priority, it may not be sexuality. And I understand my colleagues, professionals, and parents, they say, Isabelle, we have so much to deal with. And now you're talking about sexuality, the law. And I say, yes, because the consequences can be great. And it's a disaster for my clients who've been arrested. So that's the structural factor. We need to teach sex education in schools. We need to teach sex education in also in other settings, social settings. We're here promoting sex education in many organizations where they learn the program, and then educators, teachers can use it. You don't have to be a sexologist or a psychologist at all. It's educational material. And we will teach good model, because we know our students and adults, they imitate a lot. So if they imitate inappropriate models online, they may reproduce behaviors without understanding that this is not right. So we teach them appropriate models, steps in relationship. We call it the scale. You go from one step to another. Um, and then they learn from positive material, videos, role-playing situation, and that's very, very positive. We use a lot of positive reinforcement, and to be honest with you, being in a group, it's the reinforcement in itself. Although most of our participants are shy, anxious, hesitant to start with, it's so great and interesting to work with them as a group. And from week to week, eventually they start to share more, listen to each other, and we invite them to socialize in between sessions. They have access to leisure activity, fun activity, where when you have fun and pleasure, you're not anxious. So they have cooking class, they have playing the guitar, uh, games, board games, video games. So they see each other in between our program, and they become friends and supportive, and they don't want to finish the program. I know next week it's their last one, and they always say, what's next? So that's why we want to promote and give them opportunities to learn, if possible, as a group. So the social influence is very effective with our students. Um, some will one of their concern, some will mention to me that they feel that they have limited partners opportunities. So we call it poor partner selection, and it's fact that's true. Over the years, I've noticed that sometimes they since they lack of social abilities, or they haven't had a chance to be part of a group, they are more isolated, and they say to me, but where can I meet someone? So that's why if you can enlarge their network through all sorts of activities, it can be structured, semi-structured, just fun, functional games, they will start to engage and meet more people. Otherwise, they say, I'm alone, Isabelle. I'm at home. So I go online. And then the good thing is, I always say, check with someone you trust. It can be me, my colleague Dominic, anyone from the clinic. We're all working together with our clients. Check with your parents, maybe a sibling or a friend. If the chat experience and the discussion you're having are healthy or risky. But sometimes they say, I don't even know what's okay, not okay, because I've never learned. So that's why we really, really need to teach them. Um, if also they lack of theory of mind ability, I will definitely spend a lot of time teaching them about moral cognition, social dilemmas. So that's going to be a few slides later on, but I'll give you some ideas of that.
Isabelle, we're getting a lot of questions, so I wanted to just jump in on
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
First off, do you know if the types of group sessions that you're talking about, do you know of anyone who is offering them in Ontario today?
Yes, yes, definitely. I've been collaborating with numerous organizations in Ontario. It's the Geneva Center. They are aware of my program. There's also the Red Path Center in Toronto with Kevin Stoddart. I trained them years ago. There are some colleagues also working in private. Maybe I can make a list of reference if you wish at the end of today's session. So in the next days, today's participants can have access to public organizations, semi-private or private therapists who are so aware of the programs. And I say, you don't have to use the entire program if you're starting. Just use some specific topics and themes. And you can also, from time to time, work one on one. I have a client at the moment. He has multiple diagnoses on the top of autism. He has OCD, he has Tourette, and ADHD. I cannot put him in a group setting now. It's too much. It's going to be overwhelming for him and for others. I need to work with him initially. So I have clients where we choose one on one to make sure they understand basic instruction, and then they can join a group. So today's session, that's why I'm also very pleased, because I'll be more than happy to collaborate with you again, where we can organize, we call it train the trainers. So I've been doing this for years all over the world. I train professionals and parents. I always integrate parents in group because they are important, those who are interested. And we do train the trainers. It's over 2 days. Okay. I have so much thing to say about sexuality, and I teach the trainers to become educators themselves, and they can then start initiatives in different provinces or countries.
One of the questions that they also had was like a follow up to that one is, are there online workshops at all,
Yeah.
or is this all there are online workshops? Great.
There are online workshops we can organize. Before pandemic, it was all on site, so I would travel. I can still travel. I love traveling. It can be online. We can do both. We can have a real session all together initially, and then have a second one online, because you know me, I know you, and we have this first connection. So everything's possible, and we've seen a lot of good results over the years, where it reduced the risk of inappropriate behaviors, risk of abuse, and it gives skills to our students and adults.
Okay. Well, the next question I get to answer, and that's, will this be available online? Yes, it will. This session will be recorded and available online on the Autism Ontario website tomorrow. The link that you use today will also house the archive. And so we recommend that you share it with as many folks as you can, friends, family, loved ones, anyone who will find this information valuable. The more people that come through, the more of these we get to do. All right, Isabelle, still a lot more coming in, but I know many of them we're going to get to soon. So I'm going to throw it back to you to get into more of the content, and I'll pop back in when the time is right.
Good. That's great. Thank you, Matt. So, so that's moral judgment and empathy. Very, very important. I hope I'm going to be as clear as possible. I'm here thinking about, again, theory of mind because it's a central factor in prevention and education. So we may teach social dilemmas to clients. It means understanding the consequences. Is it okay? Not okay. It is so important because when I go to court, either from a report or I'm a witness at court, I explain to my colleagues and the judges that most clients with autism, especially when they don't have intellectual disability, they are able to judge different situations because this is what I assess in advance. I show them drawings of all sorts of social situation, friendship situation, and also abuse. And I want them to say what's okay, what's not okay. So they are, most of them, able to say, for example, if you hurt someone deliberately, this is not okay. Or if you steal, this is not okay. So social dilemmas, it's usually they're okay with that. But the problem is impulsivity. Many of them, they don't think about consequences. So if they have a behavior, they're really on the moment and they don't necessarily think how it can affect the other person. So then I'm going to jump into teaching them moral situation. Moral situation, and is it a situation? What's the consequences? What should I do if I'm assertive? If I'm aggressive, what will be the outcome? So I will mix all situations together, thinking about yourself, but starting to think about the thought bubble of other people through social dilemma, moral cognition. And that's going to be super important. So then I can start to access notion of consent because that's where I think my clients have the most difficulty. I was in court 2 weeks ago. A client had inappropriate gestures towards someone, and unfortunately, he hurt the other person out of impulsivity, but he felt he was the victim because when he was in the situation, the other person started to act in a, I would say, somehow verbal, aggressive way and started to yell at my client, and the client got very agitated, so he wanted to push the person away, and unfortunately, he hurt the person. My client went back home. He said to his parents, I'm the victim. Someone was very not nice with me. Someone was rude. The police arrived in the meantime because the other person, the victim, in fact, called the police and they were just following him walking back home. My client didn't run or didn't pretend it was not him. He arrived home and he said, I was the victim. And when the police arrived, he was so happy. He said, see, mom, they're here to protect me, so we will go and arrest the other person. So he took it on the other side. He thought he was the victim. He never understood that he was the one who just committed something totally illegal by hurting someone. Imagine, so this is the type of situation. Other clients, they go online and they start to look at images and they are very naive and they don't understand consequences. And one of our clients, that's years ago, and that was a striking case, but I need to tell you the story. This adult client was online and he started to look at erotica because online you also have erotica. Erotica means that there's the entire body and there's kind of a situation, foreplay, or at least characters will discuss a bit, and you can see romantic sexual scenes. Porn is it's genitals. It's only sexual behaviors and genitals, so you don't see the entire body. So this client went online, looked at erotica, and finally, like many other clients, there was like sidebars on the top of your computer, on the side or bottom, and or what we call pop-ups, and it says "click here for more." So this client, he clicked and he started to look at I call it gray zone, illegal. They call it teen porn. That's the most popular porn online at the moment. It's called teen porn. So it's young adults, maximum 18, 19 maximum, who dress as teens. So that's totally, I know, creepy. But the thing is, my clients who have autism or Asperger's syndrome, they say teen porn. Okay, is this illegal or legal? And this client, he started to download some images. And the moment you start to click more than once on the pop up or the sidebar, you're at risk of falling into what we call third generation porn illegal. So he started to see this and he said, oh, that's not what I want to look at. Maybe it's too much. But close the computer thinking he's safe and he's okay because his judgment was that's not what I wanted to see. He was arrested by the cyber police. When he went to court, imagine this is absolutely amazing. He went to court and he said, I'm going to defend myself. I don't need a lawyer because in his mind, he's an honest person and this is not what he wanted to look. So he said, I never used my credit card. So the judge said, I'm sorry, what are you talking about? He said, when I went online and I started to look at images, my idea was to look at erotica, not illegal porn. So I never used my credit card. So the judge said, I don't understand what you're talking about. And the client said, when it's illegal, you need to pay for it. And the judge said, okay, you thought that if it's free and accessible, it's legal. And the client say, yeah, nowhere it was written, don't look at this website or be careful. It contains illegal material. So the judge understood that the client was very naive, lack of information, and in a way, he fell in the trap of illegal porn. So the judge was just so happy, clever. He said, maybe we should assess this man. I think he has autism features because he doesn't present himself as a predator. And in fact, this is what happened. A colleague of mine assessed him, Asperger's syndrome at that time, now we call it autism, and instead of sending him to jail, he was sent to what we call diversion program. I'll explain this in a few minutes, and this is what we do in our clinic too. Another client of mine, he went online, he was very curious because he never had a girlfriend. He's in his young 20s and he would like to see what's the foreplays, what's the script. When you meet a girl and she's cute and you fall in love and he said to me, I have all good intention, but I don't know how. He went online to learn. He fell on juvenile porn again because it's everywhere. He clicked and he said, ooh, that's not what I wanted to see because he was able in his moral judgment to say, they are young, they are small people, this is not appropriate. And he said, I want to look at women of my age, mid 20s or so. But this is not the majority of images he found online. So his mistake, he took the inappropriate images, he put them in a folder to say, don't look at that. Because he wanted to sort them out to make sure he will never see them again. But when he was arrested by the cyber police of Montreal, they took his computer, they opened it, and on his desktop there was this folder. Don't look at these pictures. And I explained to my colleagues and the judges and the policemen, he has autism because if he's a predator, he will get rid of these pictures. He will never keep them to say, don't look at them. And this client, he was very vulnerable. And I think, of course, this judgment was not good initially, but he should have checked with someone. Maybe there are other websites I can look at. But he fell in the trap and he was arrested. And we're still working on that case because it's going to be tricky. Another client of mine, he's 15-year-old. I'm telling you my day-to-day work. 15-year-old, okay? He goes online because he would like to see girls of his age. He's curious. He said, Isabelle, I don't want to look at old, ugly women like you're. like in their 40s, 50s. He said, this is not what and we laughed together. I said, I understand, but you cannot look at 15-year-old picture online. It's illegal. But he said, I'm 15. You see? So we had to go through the program with him. So this is why we absolutely need to protect, prevent, and educate. So we will teach them notion of private and public, behaviors that are okay in private and what's inappropriate in public places, limits, age group. If you go online, and that's the case of one of our female client in their group, she's 18 and she started to chat online. And the good thing is she's with us. So she said, oh, I have an experience to share. I found out that the guy I'm chatting with, he's 50-year-old. So I don't want to, be negative, but maybe we need to be cautious. What about his intention? She said he's talking about sexual things with me. Is this okay? See, age group, limits, boundaries. So it's good for her that she shared with us and we were able to check the discussion they're having, and then for her to be proactive and to shut down her account and say that's not appropriate. But see, that's very important. We also work with parents. We try to encourage parent control on computers and any device at home, and we do it with the client. We never do it without client's consent, because to be clear with you, if you put parental control and your teenager or young adult finds out, they will know how to unroll it, or make it I'm sorry, I'm looking for the word in English. I'm French speaking, most of the time, to kind of unplug, or what's the word I'm looking for, Matt?
Enable.
Enable. Thank you. Enable the parental control, because they're very wise, technically speaking. So we do it with them and explain why it's important. And also, little tip for parents, not just the computer, but it has to go on also on the any device at home that is connected to internet, including computer games. When they go and they play with a PlayStation, it's online. Many of my clients told me that they don't watch porn on their computer. It's when parents are at sleep and they are using their PlayStation. Any device needs to have the parental control, so it's going to filter, or it's going to be very important for illegal website won't come in at home. And I had families where it was a parent's computer that was used. So you don't want that to happen. We will teach about juvenile pornography, because that's the reality of most websites at the moment. And we will talk about legal consequences. Why is pornography so problematic at the moment? Here, I want to share some work that I'm doing with a US lawyer called Mark Mahoney. He is just a wonderful person. He devotes his time and energy to defend clients. They all have autism or Asperger's syndrome. He's a criminal defense lawyer, and we've been collaborating now for different programs together, conferences, and in the resource link connection you have, there's also a webinar we did together last year, and you'll have access if you want to listen to his comments and his work. So why is pornography such a problem for our clients? Because our clients, they enjoy what's practical and visual. It's quick, and they are all curious. So you go online in half a second, you can see whatever you want. Problem is, our clients are good at following instructions. When it says click here for more or come here and watch me, they are good at following rules. So they will probably click without thinking. Again, that's theory of mine. I have good intention. I cannot imagine that there will be bad things outside on the net. It's all free, it's all accessible. At the moment, what's really ambivalent is the 12, 15-year-old juvenile porn who dress sometimes in clothing that is confusing for clients. And also, I told you the hentai, the sexual manga, all these websites like Lollipops. Never, never use Lollipops website. It's drawings representing young girls between about 5 to 12 years old in sexual situation. But from one click to another, it leads very quickly to inappropriate website. Since some of our clients they have a gap in maturity, they may be curious to look at younger people. I'm very careful with what I say here. They are not predators. There's a gap of maturity in relationship. So it's not rare that I work with someone who's, let's say, 18-year-old, but in terms of maturity is more like a 14, 15-year-old. So he relates easily to younger people. So if he goes online and play games with younger people, chat with them, he may be at risk of falling in the trap of maybe eventually discussing about things that are inappropriate with younger people. So that's why we want to increase their maturity and give them access to groups of other students with similar age to prevent going online and chatting with someone who's too young. And the problem, that's another one, another factor, risk factor, is that some clients have learned or discovered sexuality through porn and they get fixated on a website or an image. But my clients, they grow older, but they're still looking at the same images. And these images, maybe when they were young, I'm not saying this is okay, but when you're 18, 17, 18, you're more interested in same age group. But now my clients are 25 and they're still fixated to some images. So not all my clients, but some in terms of routine. And I don't want to be rude here, but I just want to give you something important in terms of information. If they discovered sex and pleasure through porn, there's a strong risk of developing what we call a chain reaction. So I look at this image, I'm sexually attracted, I may masturbate, and then that's it. They may click on the same website and image many, many times. So that's why we want to enlarge the script, enlarge the images to something appropriate, not pornographic. So I cannot say to my clients, don't look at internet. I'm not their mom. I'm not a policeman. I cannot check on them. I say, I'm going to teach you what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. And on the other side, that was for me my challenge for years. I will find websites that are educational, images that are not inappropriate. So I'm going to teach you what you want to learn about because since they're curious, they will go anyway. So at least they will know where to go and what's safe and what's healthy. And then we also want to teach them consent. Years ago, I attended a conference in New York City with the Young Adult Institute, and I met an incredible psychologist. We became colleagues, and he was presenting his tool that I thought that's exactly what we need. It's called the Verbal Informed Sexual Consent Tool from Young Adult Institute, where it explores theory of mind, practical material, and it comes with a video where we explore different factors or indicators to teach our clients first if they are able to give consent and then check consent. I just want to spend maybe a minute here saying that I think for so many years, we, including myself, forgot to check with the person first. My clients, many of them, are not even able to express consent. Am I okay, not okay? How do I feel? Am I happy with this person? Do I want to continue chatting? They have difficulties being assertive. And sometimes when they don't feel well, they are not able to connect with inner symptoms or emotions. So I kind of discovered through my work that I need to spend time with teaching them first. Do I want to give consent? Am I okay, not okay? And then to check with the other person. So that's why when I found this tool, we started to use it at the Montreal clinic. We also validated a French version with some colleagues in other organization here and also in France. That's interesting to say. And we've been using it now, and it is very, very informative. So the indicators is choose to engage or not in a sexual contact. Do you understand prevention of STIs, unwanted pregnancy? Do you know the difference between private and public? Do you understand the law? And what are your understanding of what's abusive and how to prevent? So this tool you will have access is really, really interesting. So thank you to my colleague at Young Adult Institute who agreed that we would include this tool in our book and also in our diversion program. So now I'm going to talk about different strategies, program tools. There's not just one. I'm always curious and interested in using bits and bits of lots of things and using what works the best. So I'm going to share with you some, I hope, interesting resources. So the first one is I published a few years ago the book called Asperger's Syndrome and Sexuality that can be used for autism, of course, co-written with Dr. Tony Atwood. In fact, that was a large part of my PhD thesis was to teach sex education to teenagers and adults. So in this book, you will find a lot of information about the sexual profile. I have a section on inappropriate sexual behaviors, impulsive behaviors, obsessive sexual behaviors in some of our clients who become obsessed with sexuality, and how to teach them adequate steps in relationship. So the first part of the book is all the information about sexuality, and the second part is the program. So you have in this book is 10-week program with different topics like intimacy, love and friendship, STI prevention, abusive behaviors. So all the material is in the book. Then you have questionnaires, quizzes, interactive games, online resources. So that's the starting point that I would recommend to teach basic sex education. Since the publication of the book, we published the book on the law I presented earlier, and then we added internet pornography and understanding the consequences of inappropriate behaviors. So the content of the book is, the content of the program is all in this book. We really want to talk about detail, images, and I'm going to be very clear here. All my clients who've been online, they were curious about sexual position, and they asked me, I've put it here in a sweet way, how to make love. So what are the sexual positions? This is what they want to learn, and they want to see body parts. They are curious. So I thought, okay, when you go online, it's going to be porn, not good. How can I teach them? So I found two interesting programs. It's not erotica, it's not porn, it's educational. The first one, it's in French, but don't worry. What's important is the videos. You just have to turn down the volume, and as a parent or professional, you just give them information. It's called a sensual education, okay? And it's fantastic. You have different videos where the first one is how to kiss. My clients, they say, Isabelle, where do I start? I say, you start by kissing. But when you look at movies, it's not realistic. Porn, not realistic, because in porn, there's no consent, there's no condoms, and there's violence and abuse. So I prefer to show them a video like sensual education, and then you kiss, and then you kiss with the tongue, and then you make cuddle and start to touch each other and have a look. It's free. It's very nice. And my clients, they say, Isabelle, thank you so much. This is what I wanted to learn. And then it gives me material to start to discuss with them steps. Consent, is it too quick? For example, my clients, when we do the group session, they say, after how many dates is it okay to kiss? Is there like a rule? I don't know. It depends on how I feel, how the other person feel. I'm going to give them guidelines of what's okay. And when I'm not feeling well, what I need to say, I have rescue words. I need to be assertive. I'm unsure or I don't want to kiss. Another client, she said, she's super nice, very clever. She said, Isabelle, I met a guy and we've been dating now. We saw each other 5 times. And he said, I would like to, get closer to you and eventually have sex. She said, 5 dates, is this enough? Is it too much? What should I say? What should I do? See, good, we'll discuss it together. So, this is a very interesting website where step by step, in a very respectful way, you can start to teach some steps in relationship and what I call healthy sexuality. We will also talk about security because you don't want to be a victim as well. We will prevent bullying online. We have a whole set of activities when we run the group with my colleague where we go on real websites and we explore materials when people chat together. How can you read between the lines? If someone posts an ad, is this good, not good? Is it safe? Is it unsafe? So we present them all sorts of real ads we found online. Some will content, words of sexuality. Is it too quick? If someone asks you about personal information, intimacy information, should you answer? If not, what can you do? So we teach them how to be safe when they navigate. And really, we address all these matters because it's been now 3 years that we run this advanced skills group in sexuality and the law. And most of our participants said, in fact, they are all online. They all have profiles, and sometimes they don't really know how to, initiate, or they don't know how to respond. And sometimes they've been in inappropriate situation. So it's very important to address the online safety. So the intervention model, I'll be very brief here. I don't want to go into many details, but there's the educational model I just presented with the workshop. We teach everything, and also diversion model. Diversion is very similar to sex education. It's just that we will also have one-on-one sessions if someone goes to court. Like my client who was charged with downloading illegal material. Uh, Punishment won't work. If he goes to prison, it won't work because he won't learn anything and it's going to be a disaster for him in prison. Imagine how vulnerable he is. So I developed a model that you'll find in the book called Asperger's Sexuality and the Law, Autism, Sexuality and the Law, sorry. And the diversion program is based on education, intervention, and teaching the person. Because we discovered, due to lack of social interaction and information, they are very vulnerable. So we will teach them. And I do sex therapy with them or psychotherapy if needed with my colleagues. And since we've been using diversion program, this year it's going to be our 10th year, we have seen that's interesting, and that's also the work of Mark Mahoney in US. There are no reoffending behaviors. None of our clients have reoffended. And I'm very happy to say that. Why? Because they've learned. All my clients who did inappropriate things, they said, Isabelle, now that I know the consequences with the other person, the law, etc., never I would have done this because they don't have predator mind. My clients are impulsive. Yes, they didn't think about consequences. Not good, but we'll teach them now. And they're all able, after diversion program, to say, I present them tons of scenarios on video, on drawings, on pictures, and after the program, they're able to say, this is private or public. This is the right age group or not the right age group. They learn to read between the lines. What's unsure? What do I do? What do I say? If someone comes to me, how can I read? So they become experts at reading illegal situation. And good thing, since we educate them in group setting afterwards, they make friends, they enlarge their network, they're not as isolated, and they start to engage in friendship and romantic relationship. So my my motto, if I can say, one of my goals is to avoid going to prison, because those, unfortunately, who've been to prison came back and they made friends with real criminals, real predators, and they start to imitate what they've seen in jail, and they reoffend usually within a week. Not in a sexual way most of the time, but they will steal a car, breaking into a house or a shop to get money. So they've been trained to become inadequate and inappropriate. So that's why diversion program is super important. And the good thing is, 2 weeks ago, I was so happy. The judge and I'm sorry, I'm thinking in French, la couronne, les defend lawyers, defensive lawyer, defend lawyers. If I'm sure, la couronne. How do you say?
The defense.
Defense,
Let's.
yes, yeah. Okay, the defense lawyer. They understood the idea of diversion, and they gave a chance to the client and say he won't go to jail, and we trust that he's willing and able, of course, to learn and be educated, and we can modify inappropriate behavior. So that's the model that I'm I'm really keen on, the diversion program. We're almost done. I hope it's not too much.
No, I mean there's a lot. We have a lot of questions, but I'm watching the ones that are getting marked off. So I think we're gonna
Yeah,
push through for the next little bit,
yeah,
and then we will use the
perfect.
end
Yes,
to answer the questions.
I'm almost done with my slides. So we can go on next one. Very good. We will also teach cyberbullying. So how to recognize that someone may misuse you, or want to ask you money, for example. That's one that we teach. We have a scenario where after less than 5 minutes of chatting, the person will start to ask you personal detail or money. That's a red flag. Not to share any type of naked pictures online, even if it's someone that you think you know or you trust, because this person may misuse the pictures later on. This last summer, Montreal police. I'm in close contact with some of them, and they said that there was an increase in cyberbullying in Montreal, especially for young boys who eventually fall in the trap of nice-looking girl who says, "I want to become your girlfriend." After about five, six sessions of chat, she shares a picture of her breast or of semi-naked pictures of her, and say, "Send me a picture of you so we can then become boyfriend, girlfriend." So boys can be very naive. So they send a picture, and right on, they say, in fact, it was not a nice girl. It was maybe a group of predators online. And since they have your own personal contact details and everything, they threaten you to say, "If you don't give us money within a day or two, we will share the pictures with the contact you share." So my clients are very, very vulnerable and gullible. So we teach them that the person you think you're chatting online may not be a real person. They may use pictures that is someone that, in fact, you don't even know. So we will teach them all these rules. And online dating, that's a positive one. They want to date online. So now we have online dating website for people who have autism, ADHD, similar condition, and it's kind of guarded in a positive way. There's professionals also working with them, so it's a safe place, because I don't want my clients to go at any online dating sites, because most of the time it doesn't work for them. So they can have access to these online dating resources that are safe, and also, as I said, with a mixture of different diagnostic or characteristics, and they celebrate the difference in our adults here. So I won't read this in details, but this is an example of what we use in our sessions. It can be one-on-one or group session. Appropriate message and information you can share online, and inappropriate message. So we ask them, is this okay or not okay? So they learn, and we make lists, and we show them, for example, it's okay to share about holidays or pictures, general pictures of yourself or your pet animal, but you don't start to share personal information, and we give them all the details. So I won't share all the details here because we'll miss out time, but I just want to show you that this is the type of material we use. And in the next slide, we teach them consent. What is consent? Before saying yes or no, what should I think about? So there's a process to go through. So we will click on each of the bubble and explain to our groups. I ask the other person's intention. How can I read the other person's intention? Can I share my intention? Because consent can be complex. And I need to tell you something very straightforward that looks so simple, but we realize through our teaching experience, me and Dominic, that we realize that many of our clients, they thought that if they say yes once to a person, it means yes all the time. And we say, no, you can change your mind at any time. They say, yeah, but I said yes last time. For example, there was a young couple I was working with, both with traits of autism. And she said, we kissed last time. It was okay. It was appropriate. We were in a private place. But today I'm not feeling too well. I'm not sure I would like to kiss. But since I said yes last time, Isabelle, do I have to say yes all the time? And I said, no. So that's why we have these fact sheets, interactive, where we press on each of these content and then we have questions and the answer comes afterwards. And on the next slide, we did it for this couple, but now we've published it. Yes, I can change my mind at any time. For example, I invite the person in my room. What's okay, what's not okay? It's a private place. I know the person. I'm feeling well. Let's say we want to kiss. I can say yes or no. But it's not because we kiss that definitely we will start to touch at each other's body parts. It doesn't mean that I will undress. So at any time, you can change your mind. So we have role playing scenarios, we have videos online that we combine and we freeze the video and we say, okay, read the situation. Is he or she feeling good or not good? Hesitant. If you're hesitant, what do you do? What do you say? So we teach them to be proactive. So this is how we teach consent. And on the next slide, signs of feeling good. When I'm feeling good, and it's not necessarily sexual, it can be with a friend. For example, I'm close to my friend, I feel comfortable. What does it mean to feel comfortable? I smile. I maybe want to hug my friend. And if eventually we talk about a relationship, maybe I want to touch the person or I want to be touched. We say nice things to each other. We wish to kiss. So we will explore positive behaviors, positive feelings inside, positive symptoms. Because if I want to teach consent, I need to be connected to how I feel first and then check with the other person. And on the next slide, I'm showing this very quickly, but it takes me like sessions and sessions and sessions. So just for consent, we have about 5 sessions of 1 hour and a half each. Okay, that's a lot. Negative signs, not feeling good. When I don't feel good, or how can I recognize that someone doesn't feel good? Because I had a client, he fell in love with a girl. He lacked a theory of mind. He was so thrilled, so happy. They went on the date and he grabbed her. He wanted to kiss her and hug, and he never took time to look at the nonverbal sign because she didn't say anything. She was freezing. She froze, I'm sorry, and she didn't say anything. But he thought if she doesn't say no, it means yes, and he couldn't read the nonverbal that she was pushing him, wanting to get away. So we teach how you recognize when someone doesn't feel good. And if you feel this way, it's a sign that you have to say, no, I'm not comfortable. And then we use on the next slide warning words. I don't want my clients to learn all these words. I just want for them to learn that something like stop, not sure, no means no. If someone say it's too quick, I don't feel good, it means no. And if you don't feel good, this is something you can say no or stop. So we have again our vignettes and videos. We freeze the video, and when they are able to decode that, let's say one of the character doesn't feel good, they're so cute. They just stand up from their chair and they say no, stop. So At the beginning, it's really strong, but I prefer for them to be very assertive than freeze, because that's a whole different topic. But I'm also teaching at the moment a course in a university on trauma and cognitive behavior strategies. And all our clients who've been through traumatic experience, especially those who've been sexually abused, we found from research and clinical experience that they tend to freeze. They usually don't say anything, and they don't want to get out of the situation because they don't know, is this okay, not okay? And if you freeze and you don't do anything, you're even more at risk of being abused multiple times. So I teach my clients to be assertive and proactive. We use videos, so this is something you can go and check online. This is super nice. It's called Social Signals. She's a sex therapist in US. We met in numerous conferences, and she developed a series of videos that are excellent. And my favorite is called Flirting or Stalking. So there's a video you can check online and order if you want, where you see this young man falling in love with a girl at school, and he's making all the mistakes that we don't want him to do. So the first part of the video, he doesn't shower, he's very intrusive, he wants to grab her and kiss her, he doesn't check her nonverbal signals. And finally, as you can imagine, the name of the girl is Sasha. She's pushing him and say, don't want to have anything to do with you. Next part of the video, part two, it's exactly the same scenarios, but with the good behaviors and attitude. So instead of stalking, he's flirting, but in a nice way. Each step is appropriate, and at the end, I won't tell you how it ends up, but it's super cute and super nice. My clients, they love this video. So go online, and Social Signals has a lot of material. This is my favorite one, but you can find also another tool that my colleague developed. It's called the creepy meter, like a real meter when you become creepy and when it's healthy. So this is a very interesting website you can have access. And also there's Police Service of Montreal, it's called SPVM. They developed an online game. It's so nice. It's called Cyber Sex and Bullying. It's interactive game. So when you click, it's in French, but don't worry, it's super simple. My clients, both French and English, they love it. And you click on the situation. For example, you see it's cartoon, okay? It's cartoon type. There's a boy, he's online, and then he received a picture, and it's all in drawing, and it's a picture of his girlfriend. She said, remember me yesterday, and you can see that she's probably undressed. He's looking at the picture, in fact it's a drawing, and he's thinking, should I keep it for myself or maybe share with my friends, so I'll be very proud that my girlfriend is sexy? And then you have, should I share it or should I keep it? And if you click on share it, there's a little policeman cartoon saying, this is illegal. And he's teaching you the consequences. If you click on never share it, the policeman will say, good job, because that's a risky situation. So go online, it's free, it's very good. I've been using it for years now, and it's interactive. So I like it when we teach about cyber sex and bullying. Outcomes of education and also the diversion program. We have developed better communication abilities in our clients. They're able to communicate what's okay, what's not okay, notion of consent, being assertive. They start to develop quality time as a group, and some made friends, and some are now in a relationship. They develop intimacy. For me, intimacy is not sex. Intimacy, it means I can relate to someone, I can share my thoughts, share my emotion, and spend quality time. And the more you are able to spend quality time, the less you'll be isolated as an adult, and the less you're at risk of falling on the trap of inappropriate online dating or porn, because you have friends and you may have even a boyfriend, girlfriend. Many of our clients students as well, because we do it in schools. They say that after the program, they experience more positive emotions, because I don't want to say that sex is dangerous. I want to teach them prevention, but there's also very good part about healthy sexuality when we think about prevention of STIs, when we think about love and romance. This is what they are also wishing for. So the emotions from parents and our participants are more positive, because they know now that they can protect themselves. It's good for their self esteem. Of course, it decreases the risk of sexual abuse, inappropriate behaviors going on both sides. It's part of that's my mandate in life, to teach them healthy sexuality, because it brings better quality of life. And all our students and adults, they have a right to healthy sexuality and quality of life. I'm done. I'm done.
There we go. So much to cover here. So we're going to take the last 5 minutes to really jump in on these questions. So, um, when it comes to parental controls, do you have a preferred parental control application or method? I mean, my understanding is that almost every device has its own, right? Or is there
Yeah,
any
but
overriding tool that you
yeah,
use?
usually it's very simple. It's the telephone company or the internet company that you have, that they have a kit. And if you're not sure how to use it, because you have online instruction with each company, if you're unsure, you can always call for free, and you will speak to a technician. And the technician, it will be, on the phone or online chatting with you, and he's going to tell you, or she's going to tell you, what to do to protect the computer and any device at home. So each company provides this service for free. And usually there's a
Um,
password. Maybe, sorry, I just want to say the detail for those who are maybe not
yeah.
aware. There's a password, okay? Because it means that when you use a password, your screen is protected. So it means that your IP address will be safe. That's very important. Do it with the person, that your son, your daughter, your adult, because if they find out the password and they disable the password, your network is at risk. And this is what happened to many families. They say, oh, we did it, and we thought that would be, maybe a protection for us, but in fact it didn't work. So explain to your son and daughter why you do this, because you want to protect them and protect the family as well.
Okay. You had told a story of one of your clients who was speaking to somebody online. They asked you if it was okay. You were able to
Yes,
determine
yes,
that it,
yes,
it
yes,
was or wasn't. The question that we have
yes.
is, how do you start that conversation?
Yes,
Are,
yes, yes.
what do you, if they don't bring it to you and ask you the question, what are the things you should look for as a parent or as a caregiver?
That's so important. You open up the dialogue. I always say key number one, open communication, not overprotection. It means that parents can initiate the discussion saying, everyone goes online. It's normal, it's natural. We know that you're curious. Maybe this is something we can do together, is to review what's okay, what's not okay, and try to find someone they trust so they can discuss and check situation. So what we usually recommend is, sometimes parents say, is it my role? I say, yes, in fact, it's everyone's role. It's parents, but also if you can have a professional, because my clients, to be honest with you, they say, Isabelle, we can talk about everything because I know you won't judge me. And if there's something not so great or whatever, you won't condemn me. You'll say, okay, I'm going to help you. I'm going to teach you. So what we do is ideally send an open message that it's okay to talk about it. If your son, daughter not feel comfortable with you as a parent, if they join a group, this is what we see with our adult group at the moment, they start to check with each other. Last session, last week, there was a young man. He said, here's my profile. He didn't came to us, me and Dominic. He went to another participant and he said, what do you think about my we were like, yes, this is just so cool. And the other guy said, oh, that seems appropriate. He said, let's review it together because we give them fact sheets. So they start to check with each other. This is what we want. Because if you have a teenager or adult who's neurotypical, this is what they do. They check with brothers, sisters, or their friends. Our clients are more isolated. So start with a positive, open communication as a family, and eventually you can then move on to either a professional or a friend who becomes like a social, I call it a social pillar in a way.
Excellent. Okay. Well, we could keep going. I know there's a number of the questions that are in there that we have answers to. People are looking at what age do we teach what items. That's been covered, I believe, in a previous webinar that we can
Yes,
share with
yes.
folks. But in general, thanks so much, Isabelle. And thank you all for your participation today. A few things that we want is our contact information is up there. We're going to aspire to get you your answers. If we don't, reach out to us. We're here to assist and to help. And before you go, let's make sure that you fill out that feedback survey. The more information we have from you, it helps inform our decisions on what type of events we put on. It helps us frame our content around your needs, which we want to do because this webinar, like all of our webinars, will be available online, on demand, and available tomorrow. The Autism Ontario website. Tell your friends, loved ones, caregivers, anyone you know that might find this valuable. The more people we have through this program, the more of these programs we can put on. Isabelle, is there anything you'd like to leave our audience with before we go today? Anything that you didn't get to during your presentation?
Yeah, maybe a final note is don't be afraid of teaching sexuality. I know it's a sometimes sensitive topic. Remember that your clients or your students will be very, very curious and thrilled. And I have to say, we have so much fun in our session, although it's a sensitive topic, because we laugh together, we role play, and we're together in a safe environment. So that's why it works. And every time we finish a round of sessions, with my colleagues, we say we need to do more. So I encourage you really to initiate any type of activity relating to sex education. And thank you so much, Matt, for hosting and Autism Ontario. It was a pleasure again.
A pleasure as always. With that, everybody, we look forward to seeing you on our next Autism Ontario event.
Bye.